Ladies and gentlemen, Sixto Cancel, CEO and founder of Think of Us.
I was 11 months old when I entered. I was 11 months old when I entered the foster care system due to my mother's drug addiction. Foster care is supposed to be this very temporary state for children who are experiencing physical, emotional, or sexual abuse or neglect. It was clear to me and to others that by the age of 9, I wasn't going to go back home, and so I was put up for adoption. And I was adopted, but that adoption was full of racism and abuse. And so by the time I was 13, I found myself couch surfing, going from friends to friend's house. I had to tape a recorder to my chest to record the abuse that was actually happening so that people could believe me. And finally, when I had enough evidence, I was able to re-enter foster care at 15. When I re-entered the foster care system at 15, I thought that the storm was over, but yet it was the beginning of the next storm. Eventually, I would age out, becoming too old to stay in the actual system itself. 20% of the young people who age out of foster care experience homelessness on their 18th birthday. We see by the age of 26, 50% are employed. We see that less than 3% are able to get a bachelor's degree. 76% of the children who are sex trafficked in the United States have foster care experience. What we know about this system is that it's deeply broken, and that at the intersection of some of our biggest problems here in the United States is foster care. But how do we transform it? How do we actually begin to fix a broken system? And part of the answer lies in the how we get it done. And part of that how is actually listening to lived experience, the people who are most affected by the problem, and the co-solutioning. And we saw proof of this during the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, those first couple of months, people were expected to shelter in place. But while everyone else was expected to shelter in place, it was foster youth who were turning 18, 19, 20, 21 who were expected to leave the system because we hadn't updated the federal regulations that had work and school requirements. And so youth were being kicked out, and we knew that we had to do something. So the thing that we did to bring clarity to a moment of confusion was we said, let's ask the people what they're going through and what they need. We heard from over 27,000 current and former foster youth about their needs from every single state. And we took that data to the Trump administration and we said, here's what's going on. And the power of lived experience data was that they actually jumped into action. And we co-designed with people who work in the system, with folks experiencing the problem, to shift 20 different regulations, to go to Congress alongside with a couple dozen organizations who were doing advocacy work and secure $400 million to go ahead and be pandemic relief for young people who had aged out the system without support. The system really can be transformed when you actually go ahead and co-design with young people. But it wasn't enough. Towards the end of that administration, not $1 had been spent yet. And so we teamed up with this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, with young people, with folks on the ground, to do a couple different things. Create one national point of access, a national portal, to go ahead and create to go ahead and create marketing materials. And we found over 30,000 young people, helped 44 different states, and what we were able to do is get $30 million out the door. Some of the most broken parts of foster care can be fixed if we actually leverage lived experience. And we're living in a time where the rules have changed, where the funding has changed, and it provides us this new mandate that says we can keep families together in different ways. One, by using existing dollars and new money to actually prevent kids from coming in. 64% of the cases of young people in foster care actually have to do with neglect that are related to poverty issues, even though this system was built for abusers. Then, while if you do have to come into foster care, we can actually keep families together by allowing relatives to actually be the source of keeping folks together. Today, most states don't give that same support we give a foster parent to grandma, uncle, aunt who decides to raise their hand. We can do that. We got the opportunity right now between the prevention movement, between relatives stepping up to actually redesign how the system works with new legislation. With new regulation and implementation. And so I'm excited about a world that looks different for many young people who have similar stories of the one that I have. But to get there, we're gonna have to leverage different inputs. And that new input should be people with lived experience, those who are most affected by the problem, informing the solution making so that we can have a system that works differently for all. Thank you.